Most High. He gives it to everybody freely. You ask for a good thing, you'll get it. But when you get it, you got to go out there and share it and stop letting people live in ignorance. Stop letting them to prescribe to that philosophy. Ignorance is bliss. Bury my head in the sand. All that crap, because that's the kind of crap people are taught in the secular world. That's secular thinking. It makes sense to me because every time I think about politics, my head hurts and it stresses me out, and so I just don't want to touch it. So Satan's in their heart and mind because he's not letting the issue be resolved and come to the. You've got to. What do they say? You've got to expose it. Light is the greatest disinfectant, right? So we bring these things out in the light. We have discourse and conversation and come to a consensus. If you're on the right, the left, it doesn't matter. Don't let that persuade you. Don't let that be influential in the conversation you have with people. Just try to bring them over to what your way of thinking, but understand how profoundly we've been duped at large. What is unreasonable about the Labor Department giving a cost of living adjustment? If the cost of living has been manipulated through this same collusive group of special interest groups that form this one big hydra monopoly, okay, that's very bad, okay, why is it bad to point the finger at them and say, no, look, they are raising my cost of living tax? Okay, that's what the Labor Department should do if it wasn't profoundly remiss, and say, no, there's nothing unreasonable at all. Show me how. That we should say that these unskilled workers should just have this commensurate proportional wage, that they did what we started this game. Here, let's just take 1962 as a benchmark in time. What is unreasonable? There's nothing at all. You can't say, well, that would be socialist if we did that. No, you could say it'd be anti-capitalistic not to do it, not to point the finger and call these people that call themselves capitalists out and say, no. Supply and demand capitalism dictates that the evidence is for progress that my cost of living tax goes down. I want some explaining here. Yes, I'm going to protect the people in as much as this game was started on this basis, and you're trying to change it over to this basis where we've got this perpetual wealth disparity, this wealth imbalance, and we've got ever-growing poverty, so we got to set up a social welfare state and throw them a few crumbs so we don't have women and children dying out in the cold, and the people revolt against us, elitists, that are creating the policies of division that we've had shoved down their throats from birth. So you get this thing. I hope you understand where I'm coming from, okay? And I love everybody. I really do. I'm thinking about getting a bumper sticker that says simply, I'm on your side. That's it. It's very biblical, So I think I'm going to get into some of the recent current events now. Just a final thought on this currency debasement. This is how you're being tyrannized. So you understand it, you're empowered with it, and you go forth and you don't let people live in ignorance. And you expose, okay, these evildoers. The greatest disinfectant is light. So understand this thing. It's very important that you understand. It's as simple as a scale, okay? One goes up, okay, your cost of living goes up, right? Okay, and that means your worth of your currency goes down. If you want to understand it really simplistically, okay, anybody with a, IQ above 5 can understand that, okay? That's it. So understand, progress has a definition and regress has a definition in regard to true supply and demand capitalism. If you know that, then you know the whole story, why the evildoers are so opposed to allowing true free market supply and demand capitalism to work, okay? Because it's a means to an end to set the captives free, utterly, universally free from their hold, okay? As, $5 turns into $5 billion. That is, just to, bring it to its further extensions, to be really hyperbolic and make the point I'm trying to make here. But I've also written something down because this has been on my mind for a long time. But, Jesus at the temple, God basically is a jealous God. He desires his spirit to dwell within us. And the money is a competing, it's a pseudo God. And it's competing, continually to work control over us, to gain control over us, and our affections and our attention. But it's a deceptive master, and it seeks to neutralize the cosmic power that is sovereign, that only belongs to God alone, that, is just, look, I'm the provider. I put the fish in the sea and the fruit on the trees and the grain in the ground, and I provided all the minerals. All the energy needs are there. Okay, all the natural resources. And I gave you a brain, the wherewithal to go out and to use it and to, make the earth your oyster, so to speak, and your playground. And, it was me that did this, and I'm not charging you anything. I gave freely. Who are these imposters? Okay, that say no, they're your saviors, and these are the money masters of misery. God wants them revealed, and they are. So, I'm sure as hell doing my best to reveal these people, to the light of day and disinfect their souls, their wicked souls, and try to save them from going to hell and win them over to the right side of history, which is God's side in a nutshell. And it's not a religious thing, it's a cosmic thing, okay? Belief is a cosmic thing. You believe there's a creator, God, a grand master designer? Well, you're logical. You're intellectual, okay? That makes sense, that it didn't just happen by itself. No way. That's just too bizarre. Not when you need every organ in your body. Some people will argue, oh, well, we don't need our appendix or our tonsils. That's another huge arena for debate. I'm not going there, but they do serve a purpose. God's not stupid. But, there is adaptation. That's the only kind of evolution I believe in. It's kind of like a plant. You can say, well, I took it out of its native habitat, and here it gets a lot colder, but you find out that over time that plant might learn to strengthen itself, its cells, and learn how to adapt. That's evolution, the only kind of evolution I know of. And so there is a little bit of that going on. It's like from eating meat, you grew your canines, right, for gnawing on the gristle and crap that's in the meat. But, if we ate grains and foods that are softer, than fruit, stuff like that, you'd have teeth like a bunny rabbit or deer or something, right? You wouldn't eat, so they'd be kind of flat, I got kind of flat teeth. But there is a God. There is definitely a creator God. I know that. If I know anything, I know that. And, you should know that too, and help other people, to scientifically tell them, look, you're not being logical if you don't believe there's God. Point out what I talked about, the computer, taking it apart. It's never going to reassemble itself, even though all the parts fit together like a puzzle. They're sitting right there next to each other, ready to go in. Never going to happen. And I've heard other analogies too. Like, you got a workbench full of tools and different miscellaneous hardware and crap on the workbench. And, it all falls over, and out comes this fine Swiss watch. I mean, that's what, saying there is no designer, there is no God, is like saying that that's going to ever happen. We know that that's illogical. We know it's unreasonable. We know it's never going to happen in a billion trillion years. Okay, that's the scientific evidence, the logic behind faith. I'm kind of hard on guys sometimes. And I think to myself, if I had a surviving son, because I did have a son, but he died as a child. They called it generically sudden infant death, 2 weeks old, perfectly healthy child, perfectly healthy mother. No reason for this except the vaccination, this hepatitis B shot on day one. According to Rand Paul and other experts, this is a big no-no. Never do that. So I recommend you don't have your baby given this hepatitis B, at least not on day one, or if at all. But if I had a son, I would talk to them just as hard. I mean, my dad never let me skate, okay? And I can't let other people skate for their own good. I mean, if people are, they put blinders on, they miss the mark, they think their own self-interest, or somehow, they've got to be loyal to their constituency in their own mind, that right wing or the conservative values, or vice versa if it's the liberal. So they put blinders on, and so they get involved in this dishonesty, and they're kind of demon possessed in this deception. And so I have an obligation as a friend, as a brother, to point that out. And if I don't do it, then I'm remiss, and then their blood is on my hand or my head for going down the wrong path. And anybody that encourages them, I mean, a yes man is not a friend. They're just, oh yeah, you're always right, you can never be wrong. It's a sycophant, bootlicker, brown nose. So I'm not that. And so, I'll apologize later. I was a little hard, and, I really tore this guy a new one with what I said, excoriating them, and it was a little over the top. But, it kind of gets a point through, like Jesus and the money, and the money changers in the temple. he made his point, even though it was a dramatization and he might have been acting out. But sometimes that's what you do, and you use, words of excoriation and rebuke, and but you got to do it in order to make your point. Sometimes you get a little carried away, but I'd be just as hard on my own son. So if anybody wants an apology, you got it, because we're all just one big family, and we've got to learn to be one big fat happy family is what I want. On gun issues, we got to remember what's written in Isaiah. Isaiah wrote that someday, okay, at the healing of the nations, which is in the plan of God, Christians believe some wild stuff, and they believe in this healing of the nations, in this renewal of all things, and God's will being fulfilled on earth, the return of Jesus. This is with anybody that says they're a Christian, then this is stuff they have to believe in, and they have to let those beliefs supersede all their foolish, temporal, minutia, political beliefs and all that other crap, okay? That would only divide us. But it says in Isaiah that, this day is coming when men will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. So always keep that in mind when you are, an absolutist about the Second Amendment. And I myself am a bit of an absolutist. Even my dad, who really didn't care about firearms, I can remember he always, used to keep a rifle around, but, he eventually gave it away. But, it's one of those things that, we shouldn't, he who lives by the sword will die by the sword. Remember what Jesus taught. But Jesus is the same one that had his crucifixion when they came to take him. He's the one that sell your cloak and buy a sword, so a sword can be likened to a gun. It's the modern day method of defense. So he knew that, look, my followers are not going to take this crap, and they're not going to let them all, just because they're believers in me, you call me a blasphemer and you're going to put me on a cross. They're not going to tolerate this crap, and God's going to say that's okay that you don't tolerate that crap, that you're being wantonly murdered just because you believe in Jesus Christ being the Son of God. Okay, even though Jesus said you're all sons and daughters of God, you're children of God with a small g. King David had said this. So Jesus just repeated what he said. And this is what God believes, that we should all be empowered to the extent that we're all gods with a small g. And we have great, vast power through that knowledge. And we should respect each other for that fact that we are like little gods. And, so this is another reason to love your enemy and respect them to the degree that maybe you can reach them with that respect. Just say, look, I'm going to put aside the fact that I think that you're a lost cause, that maybe, you've committed the unpardonable sin of blasphemy against the Spirit of truth. You're just a liar, a devout liar that sold his conscience for money. Okay. But put that aside and just say, look, I'm going to try to reach you as best I can with the wherewithal God gave me to reach you. Okay. Because that's my job. And if I'm able to win somebody that's on their way to hell over to God's side, and they become a big mouth, kind of like the Apostle Paul, for God's cause. Paul wrote 2/3 of the New Testament, but at one time he was persecuting Christians, having them put to death. So, anyhow, about the Second Amendment, we've got to, just keep it all in perspective, and for now it's okay. I mean, just like Trump and his border wall, I don't like it. I call it the wall of humiliation, and that's how we should use it as an opportunity to point at the Latin American, south of the border nations, governments, okay, for being utterly remiss, for being kleptocracies and oligarchies and all this crap. They're evil, and they're certainly not socialists. They're certainly not in the good sense of socialism, and they're certainly not capitalists, certainly not in the good sense of capitalism. They're piece of crap governments. They're elitist dirtbaggers. Okay, that's who they are, but the mainstream media is utterly remiss. So, yes, let Trump put up his wall of humiliation. We know that these people, desperate people, will always find a way to get in anyhow. They could buy a plane ticket and just never leave, get lost in the, change their name or something. So we always know that people are going to be coming to America illegally anyhow, with or without a border wall. They can still drive across the border and do the same thing. So, it's going to happen. But I say, there will be this time the healing of the nations will occur. So it should be a pivoting wall with the solar panels, right? So that when the healing of the nations come, we can still use it to generate power. Just a thought. I mean, it makes sense to me. So it costs a little more, but it'll save a lot more in the long run. and be useful, because a lot of people believe this day is imminent, this return of Christ, that almost all prophecy has been fulfilled except for the gospel being preached throughout the world. People wonder, well, why do you have to be all Christian and preachy, and you're out there proselytizing and trying to win hey, it's the duty you have to preach the gospel, which is translates the good news. And when it's preached throughout the whole world, okay, when these leaders like in China stop